you're new or returning to Affliction Warlock in the Midnight pre-patch, here's the good news. The spec got reworked and it is now much simpler. And by simpler, I don't mean brain dead, I mean the spec finally stopped asking you to juggle 17 different dots and weird modifier stacks just to do normal damage. So in this guide, I'm going to teach it from scratch. We'll start with your resources, then your core buttons, then your cooldowns, and only then we'll go into the single target rotation and multi-target priority. Before we get into anything, this is the talent build I'm running for this video. I'm throwing it on the screen right now. If you want to copy it, the import string is in the description. This build is mainly used for Mythic Plus dungeons in the Midnight pre-patch, and this guide assumes you're using it. Alright. Now that we have performed the ancient forbidden ritual of copy-pasting a build off the internet without reading a single talent, let's talk about what the hell we're actually playing. If you just want the changes going into Midnight, here's the summary, and if you don't care and you just want to learn how to play Affliction, skip to this timestamp on the screen right now. Alright, going into Midnight, Affliction received significant changes to its core spenders, cooldowns, and main rotational abilities. Malefic Rapture has been removed as the main spender for Affliction. Instead, Unstable Affliction is now your main spender for single target, and Seed of Corruption is now your main spender for AoE. Next is a lot of the extra dots and modifier mechanics that are simply not part of the kit anymore, so Soul Rot, Phantom Singularity, Vile Taint, and Shadow Embraced, all gone.
Gone. Reduced to atoms.
Next is Summon Dark Glare. It no longer extends your dots. Instead, it buffs all of your dot damage you deal during its duration by 20%. And there's a new cooldown ability called Dark Harvest. It serves as burst on-demand damage, healing, and also the main ability that activates the Soul Harvester hero tree's capstone. And with the removal of Vile Taint, Agony now spreads in AoE using a new talent called Shared Agony. Shared Agony applies a second Agony to a random nearby target when you cast Agony. So now it acts kinda like Moonfire does with Twin Moons on a balanced druid. Alright, changes done. Now we can teach the basics, starting with resources. Affliction has a resource called Soul Shards. You can store up to 5, and you generate shards in a few different ways. You can use Agony to sometimes generate a soul shard.
Wait, what do you mean by sometimes?
Yeah, little Jimmy, sometimes. That's the spec. That's the game. Don't look at me like I coded it. I'm not pirate software.
What am I supposed to do for you?
Just kill.
Alright, another way to gain shards is to channel Drain Soul on a target that's just about to die. That's called shard sniping. Basically, you see a mob that's about to die, you suck it dry, and then you profit. And the last major way to get shards in this build is through the capstone hero talent, Shadow of Death. What it actually means in practice is that if you channel Dark Harvest for its full duration, you get up to 3 shards. You can stop early and get 1 or 2, depending on where you stop, but you shouldn't do that because Dark Harvest is one of your biggest sources of damage and soul shard generation. Alright, now you generated a lot of soul shards. How do you spend them? You spend soul shards on Unstable Affliction for single target and Seed of Corruption for multi-target AoE. That's pretty much it. There's practically nothing else to really use soul shards on, especially not in the damage department. Alright, now let's talk about your dots. Affliction is still a dot spec. You still want your damage over time effects running as much as possible. So here is the one you need to maintain in this build. Agony, we already mentioned it for shard generation. Corruption, it's very easy to maintain in this build because of the talent Absolute Corruption. Absolute Corruption makes corruption permanent, so you apply it once and you don't touch it again until the target dies or you find a new one. That's a massive simplification. It turns corruption into a set it and forget. Unstable Affliction is one of your spenders and also one of your main dots. And finally, Haunt. Haunt technically does some damage, but it's not really a dot. It's more of a damage amplifier thing, as it increases the damage you deal to that target by 12%. And both Unstable Affliction and Haunt can only be applied to one target. So here's kind of like a clean way to think about your maintenance on a single target. Corruption, you apply it once, then you forget about it. Then you only track 3 effects: Agony, Unstable Affliction, and Haunt. That's it. 3 dots. Right, now that we've gotten over your main buttons, let's go over the cooldowns. You have 2 cooldowns you care about, and you want to use them as much as possible. The first one is Dark Harvest. It's a 1-minute cooldown. If you played Warlock before, you might recognize the icon because Soul Rot used to have it. That ability is gone, so this one is a completely new spell. So it deals damage over 3 seconds and heals you for half of the damage it deals. And the cooldown is lowered by a talent called Call the Weak. By casting Unstable Affliction or Seed of Corruption, it will reduce the cooldown of Dark Harvest by 1.5 seconds. So the more you play correctly, meaning the more you spend shards, the faster you get Dark Harvest back. Your second cooldown is Summon Dark Glare. It's your biggest one on a 2-minute cooldown. While it's active, it increases the damage of your active dot effects by 20%. And that has a very important implication. You want to cast Dark Glare before you begin chain casting Unstable Affliction. Because if Dark Glare is your 20% dot amplifier, you want that amplifier covering the full duration of the Unstable Afflictions you're about to apply. So Dark Glare first, then you start pumping Unstable Afflictions. Alright, now let's go with the single target priority. Normally, I'd say the priority isn't the opener, but for this spec, it kind of is. So, no foreplay, just blow your load. So here's how we're doing it. I'm going to list the abilities from most important to least important, and I'll explain why we're doing each one. First one is Haunt. Why? Because it amplifies all damage you deal to that target by 12%. So you want Haunt up before you start stacking your dots, and Shard Spenders because you want everything benefiting from that amp. Also important, Haunt can only be applied to one target, and its cooldown is shorter than its duration, meaning you can keep it indefinitely on a single target as long as you pay attention. Right, the second priority is to spend one singular soul shard on Unstable Affliction. Only one for now, and the reason is the talent you're running Demoniac's Fervor, which means your demonic soul deals 100% increased damage to targets affected by Unstable Affliction. So you want Unstable Affliction active early so that the effect is working as soon as possible. Now the third priority is Agony. Agony is one of your biggest sources of shard generation, and it ramps up in power the longer it stays on the target. So letting it fall off is a huge damage loss. You want Agony refreshed at all times. The fourth priority is Corruption. Now because of Absolute Corruption, it's basically apply it once, but it still matters because it does damage and it interacts with the talent Nightfall. Nightfall makes corruption damage have a chance to cause your next Drain Soul to deal 25% increased damage, and Drain Soul channels 50% faster when affected. On top of that, you can have 2 stacks of the Nightfall proc. So the rule is you don't let Nightfall stacks expire, and don't overcap on more than 2 and waste procs. When you get a Nightfall proc, you want to use it before it falls off, or before you stack beyond what you can hold. Alright, the fifth priority is your cooldowns, but only after your dots are actually up. Once Haunt, Unstable Affliction, Agony, and Corruption are up, then you go into your cooldown window. Summon Dark Glare, then Dark Harvest. That order matters because Dark Glare is your dot amp, and you want that active while you're about to start spending shards and start stacking damage. After you cast both cooldowns, you should be swimming in soul shards, and your job becomes very simple: don't overcap. And that ties into the sixth priority, and this is kind of a big one. After your cooldowns are up, you want to spend soul shards on Unstable Affliction as many times as you can. Spend all of your shards, keep spending, and the main thing you're watching is making sure none of your other dots is falling off while you're doing it. Because if you cap at 5 shards, you're wasting shard generation, and wasting shards is wasting damage. So keep your dots up and dump shards into Unstable Affliction. And your last priority is Drain Soul. If you have no shards to spend, all your dots are up, and your cooldowns are already used, then you can channel Drain Soul, preferably with a Nightfall proc, but even without Nightfall, if there's nothing else to do, just Drain Soul. Now let's go over the AoE priority. AoE is extremely simple. It's almost the same idea as single target, but with one big change. Your Soul Shard spender is now Seed of Corruption. And to keep it simple, I'm not going to reteach the entire priority list word for word. Here's just the gist of it. Assuming you're just approaching a pack in a dungeon, you start applying Agony to as many targets as you can while the tank is rounding up the mobs. If there is a priority target that needs to die first, you can cast Haunt on that target and use your cooldowns if they're available. Then you start spamming Seed of Corruption as much as possible. Because of all the Agony applications, you're going to be swarmed with Soul Shards, so the rule stays the same. You don't overcap on shards, and you just keep spending. And when you have nothing else to do, same as a single target, drain soul, preferably with a Nightfall proc. And that's it for AoE. Alright, that was Affliction Warlock for the Midnight pre-patch. If you're new or returning, I hope this helped you understand how the spec works for now. If you have any questions or want me to clarify something, drop it down in the comments below and I'll try to answer. If this guide helped, hit the like button and subscribe for more World of Warcraft guides just like this one. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.